You have to respect your own individual path. There isn't really a one-size-fits-all approach for this stuff, especially in motherhood, because everyone's motherhood journey is so different, and you're going through so much change, and your child is a unique person, and their experiences are unique, so your way of raising them is unique. It makes sense that you would need someone to show you and work with you as a guide, not necessarily as a militant to tell you what to do, but just working with you to intuitively find out how do you heal in your body and your mind as your unique soul.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Sovereign Self Show. Again, I'm your host, Lauren Celentani, your somatic success coach, and today we are talking with Gabby. She's been a long-time listener. This has been a long time coming. I'm so excited. More about her, which we'll hear about in a second, but she is a toddler mom, wife, the owner of Serene Moms, LLC, a virtual wellness studio made exclusively for moms. And you'll hear in a second her beautiful journey from, your own healing journey, listening to inspirational stuff, to now leading other women and moms through their own healing journey. So it's such an honor, Gabby, to have you on the show. Welcome.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Lauren. It's so full circle sitting here today. When I was just starting my healing journey, I was listening to you, all those years ago. So it's amazing. It's a real manifestation.
Oh my gosh, I know. And it's been so cool to connect with you. I'm so excited to be able to share your wisdom and your light with the world, because what you are building is so needed, and it's so resonating with moms all over the world. So I want to, we kind of hinted, right? You started listening to the show way back when it was Witchy Wellness Radio, through your healing journey, and that inspired you to create what you do today. So if you could briefly walk us through what was happening then, and what was your own healing journey that led you to now helping moms through yoga and mindfulness really learn how to live their best lives?
Oh my gosh, so much has happened. I feel like I've lived 17 lives since then. It's just crazy. So I started this journey being pregnant with my daughter, Sophia. When I was pregnant, I actually had developed an autoimmune disease called Hashimoto's thyroiditis. It's an autoimmune disease that affects your thyroid, and it had really impacted my life prior to being pregnant. I was very involved in movement, specifically classical ballet. I was classically trained from 2 years old all the way into adulthood. So it was a very structured, regimented lifestyle. And it was beautiful and artistic, but it was also very strict and regimented. There wasn't a lot of opportunity for your own uniqueness and creativity in classical ballet, which is something that I always wanted. And then when I got pregnant, it became hard to continue ballet at the level that I had before, and just hard to continue with that same rigid movement structure that I had always, since literally a baby, my daughter's age, told to do. It's kind of all I knew was that really kind of fast-paced, difficult movement style. So when I got pregnant and I got Hashimoto's, my body, and I think of you all the time, every time I say this, was not in the way. It was leading the way, It was really forcing me to slow down, because when I had felt Hashimoto's, for people that don't know, a lot of the symptoms are extreme exhaustion, and it shows up differently for everyone, right? But for me personally, it was a lot of exhaustion. I had really bad throat pain. I felt heightened anxiety. I had gained weight, my skin, I had acne, I had lost a lot of my hair. It was just drastic difference from what I was familiar with. And I was also pregnant at the time. So, you add on all of that pregnancy symptoms on top of this autoimmune disease that I was told was not curable, and I would have it for the rest of my life. And I'd be on medication the rest of my life because it was so aggressive. And it was really devastating, and it really impacted my sense of self, honestly. I always considered myself a really healthy, movement-oriented person and a dancer. So this was just the total opposite of anything I had experienced before. And I really had to kind of find my way, having to navigate that, because, people with autoimmune diseases, they can't move the same and have the same schedule as someone who doesn't have an autoimmune disease. So you have to really watch for how much you're moving and working out, because you don't want to overdo it. So it was a big hurdle for me. I ended up actually taking a step away from the dance world for a while, just while I was healing and I was pregnant. And then when I gave birth to my daughter, I experienced another huge change in my life, becoming a mom, which was so beautiful and amazing, but was also really hard. And not a lot of people talk about how hard that is and how much stress and anxiety come with it. And just with that change and matrescence and, you know, becoming a new version of yourself, becoming a mother and a caregiver, it was a major change emotionally and psychologically for me. So you add that on with the Hashimoto's, and it was almost like a whirlwind of emotions. It was a struggling time. But through that struggle, I really found yoga and mindfulness as a cure for me. And over time, it really evolved to something I never could have imagined, which is it totally changed my life and made me into a yoga teacher and want to help other moms. But it was it was really out of my own need for different holistic health resources and a community of like-minded moms that I couldn't find at the time. When I found yoga, it had really saved me in a lot of ways and taught me to appreciate and move my body in ways that ballet did not do. And gave me a lot of the emotional support and physical support that I hadn't had just with like standard westernized medicine. So it was an amazing experience for sure, but it was a long time coming. There was a lot of ups and downs. I'm sure we'll get into it.
Oh, yeah. And life, life continually is the ups and the downs and the unexpected.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not a mom yet. That's everybody. I know I'm manifesting that. That's down the pipeline. Millionaire mom. That's my manifestation. Yes. That's I can feel it. I can like visualize it. But I'm sure, before motherhood, you had a lot going on, and motherhood happened, and what a beautiful gift and such a growth experience as a caregiver. As it's an identity shift, a huge identity shift. And like they are so reliant on you, whether you're breastfeeding or not, like, that baby is with you all of the time. So how, what was your experience with that identity shift? And like, how do you see, what are the tools through yoga and mindfulness that really helped you, early on with those first steps into motherhood?
Oh my gosh. So the identity shift, I think it's something that's almost ever evolving. Like I don't think you ever really fully identify and that's it and then you're done. I think it's like continuously changing because your child's continuously changing and evolving and growing too. So it's almost like you just continue to grow with your child and your motherhood identity kind of grows with it. But in the beginning, it's the biggest change because you go from not being a mom to suddenly having this person 24/7 that you're like caring for. It's just crazy. I remember the first night, and I like laugh at this now, my husband and I, the first night we brought our daughter home was a Friday, right? And like your whole life, you're used to Fridays being like your night off. You're like, okay, well, I can chill tomorrow. It's the weekend. And we get home and we put her in her little bassinet. She's just like a newborn, just like a sack. We're like, okay, that's done. And I sat down in our bed and I looked at my husband. I said, oh, well, thank God it's Friday. We can sleep in tomorrow. And he just kind of looks at me and he's like, baby, what? And it just hit me like, oh my God, I can't sleep in tomorrow. It doesn't matter that it's Saturday. I'm a mom every day. Like this is not a thing. But it's like, it's those realizations that you know logically that that's a thing, that you're gonna be awake, you're gonna get up, you're gonna do all this stuff. But once it physically happens and you are home with this kid and you're out of the hospital, it is a whole new like reality shift. And I think it takes like several months to kind of like identify with it and start realizing it. And like I said, you're always ever evolving and growing and changing as a mom because your kid's growing and changing, right? They go through so many little chapters from newborn to infant to toddler to preschooler, and you're changing right along with them, which is really beautiful. But it takes a lot of skill and time to learn to adapt with those changes, which is where a lot of resources like mindfulness and yoga can come in. Because what I found was I was a very like type A mom. Like I was very, regimented. I had a lot of routine. That's just how I was as a person before becoming a mom. So when I became a mom, it was hard because there's so many things that you can't control and things that you can't plan for. Like that's just the reality of motherhood. And I was also a stay-at-home mom. So like it was even harder because there was no like schedule or job or boss that I had to, get any reviews from, I guess, outside of my baby, who was kind of like my boss. But for the most part, it was a totally different change. So I had to learn how to be okay with that and like grow with all the new chapters and versions of her, because you get used to a version of the baby or your daughter or son or whoever, and then they change again in a few weeks, and you have to really learn to evolve with that. So having yoga, even things like journaling, really helped me at the time. Breathing practices really helped me, but just having those consistent things that you can use to kind of let go and recognize that, you might have things that you're used to controlling all the time, but that control really comes from a place of fear and anxiety. At least for me, I felt like I had to control things because I was scared. I was scared of not knowing the outcome. So learning to get to the root cause of that fear, like, why am I so scared of not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow, is what really helped me move forward in motherhood. And I think everyone's a little scared, but I'm less scared now. Now I can recognize this is just a new chapter, a new day. It's okay. It's going to be fine.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, isn't that true? I feel like the fear always comes up for me is like, the fear feels like I'm not growing, but the fear is actually showing you, hey, there's this growth that's already happening and I'm resisting that growth.
Oh, totally. No, my mentor says that all the time too. Like, if you are uncomfortable, it's a good thing because it means you're growing. If you're comfortable all the time, you're not really growing or evolving. And I think that that's super powerful.
So how do we bring that in to our movement, to our mindfulness practice? I think self-care is, I don't want to say diluted or watered down, but it's mainstream now.
Yeah.
But it's one thing to know about it, and it's another thing to practice it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't matter if you're a new mom or been a mom for years. I know the mom I grew up with, such a loving soul, did not put herself first. It's always family, kids first. And from her perspective, she was doing what she thought was best, right? So I really feel like I'm a millennial. I think a lot of us listening are millennials. We're kind of like that, like, switch in the generations, I feel like. We're starting to, okay, well, what does it mean to put ourselves first? And how do it's not just the bubble baths. It's not just going to one yoga class. How do I, like, build this muscle, this foundation? So if I wake up and, everything's on fire and I can't meditate right away, am I still going to be okay? That's my test for the day. Is like, if I don't actually get to meditate first thing, am I going to be a normal, sane person? Or So I guess, how do you start to build those foundations, already as a mom, feeling the urge to put everybody else first, to help everybody? How do you build that foundation? It's different for everybody, but is it like a self-worth thing that, you feel like you have to build? Or how did you kind of dive in, and what do you see with a lot of moms you work with through Serene Moms?
Yeah. So I think you're exactly right. It always starts, everyone has this perception of self-care that's like very much like bubble baths and like writing in a cute journal and going for a walk, and it's so cute and fun and, awesome. And that's great. Those things are great and they're helpful, right? And I think that's how a lot of people start on their like self-care manifestation, self-improvement journey, like whatever you want to call it. It's all kind of the same at the end of the day. I think that that's a great introduction for like a lot of people in this kind of like mainstream that aren't super woo-woo yet, like aren't really there yet. Like, that's the best way to kind of get started. That's how I got started, right? I got started with yoga because I wanted to lose some postpartum baby weight, like most people do. And I wanted a way to be a little less stressed out. So I was like, okay, cool, I'll try to meditate. Like, it was surface level for me in the beginning, just like it was for most people. Same with journaling. I was like, okay, I'll try to journal every day, write down some goals, whatever. Now it's so much more than that. But I think people mix up self-care with just those things. And the reality is self-care is actually really hard. And like manifesting and self-improvement is really hard. There's a lot of difficult aspects to it that I don't think we really bring to light enough, especially even as coaches and healers. I don't think we talk about it openly enough, maybe because we're scared of like scaring people away from it or something. But the reality is self-care and manifestation and building that muscle is tough because you're going to experience a lot of deep-seated emotions that are stored in you that you don't want to feel. That's why they're stored there. You're going to maybe even have some loss in your life in terms of like friends, family, people, relationships, jobs, locations that no longer serve you. And that's going to be really hard. Like, that's a whole nother topic of like losing people and places that are no longer like uplifting you towards that goal or that manifestation. So there's going to be periods of loneliness too. And you have to kind of work through that. when you're talking about building up the muscle, I think you're exactly right. You have to learn to be okay when you don't have those surface level self-care, like the bubble bath and the meditation and things like that. You have to work through that in a way that I usually like to think about, like the chakra system, how you have to start from the root chakra, start from the bottom and then work your way up, like bring your energy upward. We really have to start working at the root. We have to talk about, and this is where a lot of the yoga coaching and somatic embodied yoga comes in with Serene Moms too, because we also do like one-on-one private coaching sessions with moms. We really get through the root surface of like, why do you feel this way? What is it in your life or in your experience, or maybe in a past life, or something that has happened to you as a soul walking this earth today that makes you feel like you need to have A, B, and C happen tomorrow and happen every day? Why are you so attached to this external thing? And then once you go from there and you realize the root, then you can work through, well, am I really going to be okay if A, B, and C doesn't happen tomorrow? You probably will be, because now you not only worked through it and talked about it, but we've also done some physical somatic pieces as well to get that out of your body and that stored trauma away. But until you do that, until you start from the really foundational level, it's going to be hard to continue the self-care, because on the days where you can't access those external things, you're going to feel frazzled and you're going to feel unwell because you haven't hit the root cause yet. So it's hard. It starts with a lot of difficult stuff. And I think that's where people get kind of pushed away from like the manifestation and like self-improvement stuff, because they realize it's not always the easy, happy surface level things. But if you can stick with it, you will experience that up level and happiness in your life. I'm sure you've had that too, right? Like that awakening experience where for a while it kind of sucks. Then you're like, oh, it's so much better. But I also feel like it's ever evolving too,
Yes, and I was just thinking that because it's like, I thought, wow, I'm really committing to myself. I'm on this growth journey now. I got to stick through it, and then everything's going to be great. And yes, and just like you said, people don't talk about, like, there's cycles and there's levels to the game. And when we're continuously growing, there's going to be more stored stuff. There's going to be more contrast. There's going to be things you don't want to look at still. Yeah. And I think that's what we're referring to, is really like, okay, how can I be okay with practicing looking at that? And I feel like for me, traveling full time, that's been one of those times where I'm like, oh, wow, there's some stuff I haven't wanted to look at. And it's been hard. And there's been a lot of like imposter syndrome, like, am I actually as far as I think I'm going? Because all this stuff's coming up that I thought I dealt with before, but now it's here again. And I think, people listen to the show, myself, and I know you too, you feel a lot. And sometimes when you don't have a system in place, or for me, when I judge myself for feeling, you can get stuck in that lower loop. But knowing that, hey, this is happening for me, this is showing me that I am growing, having the, manifestation, emotional self-help, whatever system works for you to work through the emotions, but also coming back to the body. Yeah. Coming back to the body and getting outside, those are my two things, non-negotiables, because if I don't do those consistently, I just don't feel like myself. I've, in my head, I am more of a type A personality too, anxious just naturally by nature, because that's what I was raised. Right. That was the identity, and I practiced that over many years. So very long-winded answer here. How do you, obviously you help with mindfulness, you have the online yoga studio. How do you incorporate the body aspect into that? Because, the somatic aspect of like actually feeling it, and that's our chakras, that's our life force energy. We have that power to move that emotion through your body.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, that's huge. The mind-body connection is everything. And I don't think, again, when people are just starting out, I don't think that they really realize it. A lot of people start this stuff just for like losing weight or looking a certain way to meet like society's standards. But when you really get into it, it's so much more than that. So when we're talking about how we do that in a lot of ways, mostly through one-on-one somatic yoga coaching. So that's very personalized, because when you're talking about somatics and the mind-body connection, everyone's different, right? Like something that works really well for me is shaking. When I'm feeling stressed or I'm feeling a lot of tension, I'll shake out my wrists, I'll shake out my feet. and I'll start just shaking aggressively and just keep adding to it until I feel a little better. And that really helps me. Another thing is swaying. I'll find myself like kind of intuitively swaying when I'm meditating a lot, just kind of like moving back and forth, getting the energy out. That helps me. But I know clients that doesn't help them, and they're better with chanting, or they're better with like intuitive dance. Like that works better for them. So you have to find your unique recipe of what works for you. And I think that's where working one-on-one with a coach or someone that can support you in that way is really helpful, because I think that there's a lot of generalized ideas out there, which might work, but it also might not. And you have to kind of respect your own individual path, and know that there isn't really a one size fits all approach for this stuff, especially in motherhood, because everyone's motherhood journey is so different, and you're going through so much change, and your child is a unique person and their experiences are unique. So your way of raising them is unique. It makes sense that you would need someone to show you and work with you as a guide, not necessarily as a militant to tell you what to do, but just working with you to intuitively find out how do you heal in your body and your mind as your unique soul. That's really important. Also, having a community of other moms too. Like, one thing I love about the studio is the community of moms that we have here. We have a pretty wide range community of women who are also all looking for this wellness, holistic health space that I think is so important. Because like we were just talking about how you're on this journey, like you're traveling right now, right? And all this stuff is coming up and this up level, and you're kind of in that like cyclical, like third stage of manifestation where you're like almost there, but it's hard. And when you're there, when you're at that point, I think that's where a lot of people want to like give up and kind of uh, think to themselves, isn't worth it. This goal isn't worth it because it's really hard. But when you have a community of other people who are on a similar journey, it's so much easier to just stay intact and keep going, because you have other people who, yeah, they're not going through exactly what you're going through, but you have someone who can encourage you and support you, which is one of the most important things I think you could do. You definitely need to be very aware of your energy and who you're spending your time with. I've noticed this in my own life, especially when I became a mom. There were definitely people in my life prior who, I don't want to say energy vampires, but I mean, you could just feel with certain friendships and certain acquaintances, the energy kind of sucked out of you and just not very encouraging or supportive of your own dreams. And once I kind of let those relationships go, even though it was hard and scary and you grieve it a little bit, my life was so much better on the other side, because I had found other people in my life who really supported, encouraged, and loved me for who I am and what I want. And if you can have that, I think it's so beautiful and beneficial in the end for you, especially on a motherhood journey, for sure.
Yeah, and the community's huge to have, yes, like-minded, but like people who are like, what's the right word? Manifestation focused, but positive focused, moving in the growth direction, growth mindset. That's what I was looking for, is huge. And, certain communities you're gonna outgrow, like like learning to let, like you realize, oh, this community was great for me that time. And, I know what you're building is beautiful and positive, but just realizing, yes, friendships are going to come and go, relationships are going to come and go, communities are going to come and go, because you're growing. And you notice like, oh, wow, maybe that was like energy vampire. Maybe this community was more victim based in their identity. But what you want to look for in a community, what I look for is really that growth mindset. People don't have to believe the same thing. People who are positive, who are real with how they feel, and want to support each other, because they know like that cyclical manifestation process can be difficult, and they know it's just one more step at a time, one more step at a time. And it's really, I mean, the name of the game is just being able to feel our emotions, to be able to regulate and not become them. So what I want to talk about, we talked about yoga, mindfulness, the active manifestation, how this kind of all plays into everything. How does Serene Moms support with that? And maybe what are you in the process of manifesting as well? Because I always love sharing what in the process of behind the scenes.
Oh my gosh, yes, definitely. Yeah, my manifestation journey has definitely taken a few loops. I started the studio about 8 months ago, so really not that long ago. I started in June of last summer, posting on Instagram and hoping for a few clients to join the studio site. And it's really evolved over time. I ended up manifesting a $10,000 Women in Business grant, which really helped me last September to grow the studio. It's just been amazing having funding to be able to just amplify and grow the studio more for all the moms that have joined. So that was a massive manifestation for me that I look back, I'm like, it's funny in hindsight, when a manifestation happens and you do up level, you can see very clearly the stages you were in, but you can't see it at the time. Like, it's very hard at the time. But then I look back, I'm like, oh, I was totally like there. Like, that was like right before it up level. That makes sense, you know? But in the moment, I'm like, what is happening? What is going on? And I think that's how a lot of people feel. Now, currently, I think I'm back, right? Because I always talk about manifestation, like, the beginning stage, at least for me, looks a lot like having this sort of deep intuitive need and feeling that I need to do something, even if it's not logical. Like, I will have this almost like a visceral, innate feeling like I needed to start the studio. I needed to start the space. Moms really needed it, and I needed to do it. And I couldn't even logically explain why. Like, at the time, I didn't have any money to start a studio. I had student loan debt. I had no business financially doing this. But I went with my gut because I really felt like it needed to happen. So I think that's kind of step one. And then step two for me was like forcing yourself to take action, like just deciding this is what I'm going to do and taking steps every day to do it. And then step three for me is oftentimes I think the longest step, and the step I'm in now with my current manifestation, which is like those feelings where everything kind of comes up and like the universe tries to almost like keep you where you are stable, like where your baseline is, right? So like there'll be things that happen where maybe people or external environments try to tell you it's not a good idea, or people come back up in your life and they try to kind of push you back. Like, everything tries to kind of keep you at your baseline at this time. And it's going to be really easy to want to just shut down and say, this isn't worth it. I'm not going to do this. This doesn't feel comfortable. It's a very uncomfortable stage to be in. But then if you can get past it, I think that's where the up level happens, which is amazing. And I really saw that with the $10,000 grant and all of the growth in the studio. Now I am manifesting a holistic health healing retreat and momcation in Mexico. It's in Isla Mujeres, which, if people don't know, that's actually translates to the island of women. It's such a beautiful island. I actually went there in December with my husband. We went for just a little vacation together, and we had actually stayed somewhere else. We went to this island for the day. And when I was there, it was almost like that feeling I was describing earlier, just like innate clarity and focus. Like, I was literally there, and I remember feeling like, I have to come back here. Like, I physically, like, I know I need to be in this space. Like, my body needs to be here. And I remember telling my husband, like, I'm going to come back here. I'm going to come back here. I know I'm going to. And he was like, okay, sure. Like, whatever. Can we go back to our vacation now? Can we go get food? I'm hungry. But I was there, and I was like, I know I need to come back here. So flash forward a few months, I had taken the steps. I'm like, I think I'm going to do a retreat here for the moms of the studio. It's such a healing space. There's a Mayan temple there based off the goddess of women and motherhood, actually. That's where the temple is, and I didn't even know that at the time. So it's really amazing that I felt such calm and like presence in this space, because I later found out that that is where the temple is, which is based on this goddess of fertility, love, and motherhood. I was like, there is no better space to have a retreat for moms, a holistic health retreat, than with the goddess of motherhood. What? So I did the retreat, or I opened up the retreat for the moms in the studio, and within a few days we had almost sold out, which is amazing because it's my first ever retreat. So it's so exciting.
Gosh. That is so exciting. Oh, I gotta say congratulations. Holy crap.
Thank you. We actually only have one more spot left for a private room, which is amazing. It's going to be a very small retreat. It's a micro, like, somatic retreat, because I'm going to have every day be focused on, like we just talked about, right? Like, very individualized approach to healing. I think if I had a 50-person retreat, it'd be very hard to coordinate that. It wouldn't really make sense. But with this, I want to keep it like a very micro healing retreat where we're focusing on our own individual needs. So every person will have a private every day. We'll have a private coaching session, a private yoga session. We'll do group sessions as well. And then we're going to go to the Mayan temple to see the goddess of motherhood and fertility. It's amazing. We're
Oh
also going
my,
to chill at the beach and have some drinks and food and stuff.
of
So,
course, that's part of the mom vacation too, right?
like, how could you not?
That's part of the, manifestation journey is like, just relax. Like the only,
Yeah.
I just hear Abraham saying like there's nothing you need to do. Just,
Yep.
just relax, just chill. And, I just thought, yes, motherhood, fertility, but that's also like whether you're birthing a child, growing a child, or a business or an
Mhm.
idea or whatever, we have that power, that womb energy to
Yes.
create. We create from nothing,
Yeah.
It's powerful.
No, it is. It is. It reminds me a lot of like the sacral chakra and solar
Yeah.
plexus, where we carry so much of that creativity. And when it's blocked, I don't think people understand how difficult that can be for like entrepreneurs and, mothers and people trying to build a certain lifestyle for yourself. You really need to work through that. And that can be really hard. It's hard to see those blocks, right? When they're lower down in the chakras, for sure. I think the blocks of like the throat can be a lot easier to notice, like physically in your body, whereas like
Mm-mm.
those lower blocks can be a little more difficult to intuitively know you have right away. But once you
Yeah.
realize them and you work through them, it's like you got this.
So, I mean, we could have a whole episode on that, but
Oh,
what are some things maybe you see in yourself or some other moms that you might not notice, like patterns or energy wise in those lower chakras? Because that's really when we come back to our body and start doing somatic yoga,
right.
mindfulness, those are the things we're really tapping into
Oh
first. So,
yeah,
what are some things you've seen that you were like, oh, that's what that was? Maybe some themes that our listeners can take away and kind of tune into.
totally. So the biggest one I notice in myself and one I see all the time in moms is the root chakra, where they have money blocks. Money blocks in the root chakra are huge. And I could go on a whole thing about how I think that socioculturally that's related to like patriarchal ideas and we're kind of like rooted to have these blocks as women, but I won't go that far deep today. So that's like a whole other thing. But I had to kind of throw that out there. Also, so I think that money blocks show up in a certain way. And a lot of the times we see that with the root chakra is like, I if I spend this money, something bad's going to happen. I can't spend this money on myself because I don't have it. Or if I do it, then my child won't get to have A, B, and C. I can't put myself first because then my kid will suffer. If I do this, or if I go out to dinner tonight with my partner, then my kid will be scared in bed and they won't be able to go to sleep with the babysitter and they'll be afraid, right? It's intense feelings of fear and scarcity that tends to, I think, exist in the root chakra. And I think it really comes from a place of insecurity, but like intense emotional and psychological insecurity that some of us have inherited in our own lives. And that I think also can be a part of, I don't know, I feel like you did an episode on the witch wound with the author. The witch wound
I
book,
feel
like
like we
healing the
we
witch wound.
did a while. It was like beginning of last year, maybe,
Okay.
or
Yeah,
this
I
year.
like
I remember, oh my goodness, a British lady. I remember her face. I'll link it in the show notes. But yes, we did a whole episode.
Yeah, I read that book because of this podcast, by the way.
Wow.
I literally bought the book. I was like, this book is amazing. But I say that to say I think a lot of root chakra issues can also be a part of our DNA, like our ancestral DNA with our witch wounds and, past lives or even people in our family that have held those traumas that have been passed on to us. And even if nothing has happened in our life, which is rare, but let's say you've had a perfect life, nothing has happened, you can still carry those root chakra and lower chakra traumas through the bloodline of your family. So everyone on some level does have root chakra imbalances that they could work on and should work on. For me, it showed up as a lot of money blocks, a lot of physical fear and insecurity. Like I'm not safe in my body. I'm not safe in my house. If I walk down the street with my daughter, if you get hit by a car, we're not safe. And I think that those show up a lot too in motherhood when you're a new mom. You're in that postpartum period. You have an infant because you're caring for this brand new life, and it brings in so much fear that you don't think about all the time. And that can really make your root chakra imbalances even greater and really rise to the surface when you start seeing like postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, And physically, these can show up as well. This can show up, at least in my opinion, right? I think that they've showed up a lot for me with cysts. I had a lot of ovarian cysts after pregnancy and delivery, to the point where I actually needed surgery. Like I had one like rupture, and it's
Mm.
funny. Well, it's not funny, but it's kind of crazy when you think about it, when you know the chakra system. Because in August, I had pretty bad cysts from, having my daughter and everything, and then I had one rupture, right, which is like right in that sacral solar plexus area. And the next month is when I won the $10,000 grant. And when everything blew up for my business, I mean, chills. Like, it's
Your
crazy.
body is not in the way, it is leading the way.
It is leading the way. And the wild part is that for that whole month of August, I couldn't even really do anything because I was literally in bed, like from having surgery. Like I couldn't do a lot of things I would normally be doing because for a while I was pushing myself, trying to make this work, not really getting anywhere. And then once I had this physical issue show up in my body that forced me to rest, everything worked out perfectly. And it's ironic that it's right in the space of, where we hold creativity and all of that in our bodies as well, energetically.
Wow. Oh,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that because I know, I mean, a lot of my friends, a lot of the women I get to work with and myself, yeah, a lot of root sacral stuff, a lot of, whether it is cyst, whether it is PCOS, whether
Right.
whatever, all these different things related to the womb space is your body starting to push out that old energy, right? And when we continue doing this work and trusting that our body is leading in the way, that, I mean, the more we can surrender, right? To me, that surrender, I had a huge download yesterday about it. It's, my friend was talking to me. She's like, I'm sure everybody listening, I did an episode last week. All of the energy coming up right now in the collective and like
Yeah.
the solar flares, everything. And like, we're all feeling it.
Oh, yeah.
And she was like, I just have like all this anxiety, all these thoughts that keep coming up. She's like, I know they're not true, but they keep coming up, keep coming up, coming up. And there's a point where we were talking through, it's like we have to surrender to that. Not that we agree with those fear thoughts or our body or the pain we're surrendering to the energy that wants to move through us.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. No, it's such a good way to put it, because that is really, I think what's happening. And I've noticed it in the collective level as well. I've had different moms message me this week and last week, just being like, I just feel this like burst of energy. Like I feel this burst in me. Like, and I'm like, I feel it too. I feel it too. I think this is going to be a big year.
Mm-hmm. I feel it too. And I think, you know, to kind of wrap up everything we said here, it's like, yes, your body, your emotions, everything's leading the way. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. And get back to yourself, get back to a
Mhm.
community like Serene Moms to help you, remind you of who you are. Like that's you are so supported, by the universe, by yourself, by beautiful communities like what Gabby built. Now's the time to go all in and take those steps to that growth, because it's gonna be easier. And the more that we resist our growth, resist those ideas, like you were like, I'm coming back here. I'm coming back to Isla Mujeres and like building this retreat. It's full, right? It's like you had this like snap your fingers and a manifestation because you have been putting in the groundwork, because you are consistently, some days are easier than others, right? Building that momentum and things. The universe wants to surprise and delight us way bigger than we can humanly visualize.
Mhm.
And those are such beautiful examples of that. So, with that being said, Gabby, thank you so much for coming on today. It's been so much fun, and just, I'm so excited for everybody to get to see you and experience your energy. Such a beautiful soul. Was there anything else you felt on your heart you wanted to share with anybody today?
Oh my gosh, this has been so fun. No, thank you so much, Lauren. Like I said, this has been a manifestation for me, just being here. So it's so full circle and beautiful experience. I'm so thankful.
You're so welcome. I know we had to reschedule this. I think once, and I remember you just got like really sick unexpectedly,
Of course.
and you're like, my body is not in the way, it's leading the way. And I'm like, yes, it is for sure. And it's all in divine timing. So this was perfect. Thank you for coming on. And everybody listening, please go check out what Gabby does, whether you're a mom or not. I know you're going to resonate with what she creates in the world. And if you are thinking of a fellow mom, please share this episode with them. That's why I created the show almost, 7 years ago, 7 or 8 years ago now. Because just like Gabby, listening to all these podcasts helped me through my healing journey, inspired me to start to listen to my inner being, to start to listen to those little urges to create, right? And it's just such an honor to be able to share space with beautiful people like Gabby. If you guys haven't already subscribed, whether it's on YouTube or any podcast platform, please do. We do episodes every Sunday and Wednesday now, more solo episodes with me, which I've been loving. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. Remember, this show probably could be titled this episode. Your body is not in the way, it is leading the way. Until next time.